Hi, everybody. I am Sue Hillyard, and I am here today with Rav Chahal. And we are going to do a variation of our up close and personal interviews with your favorite astrologers. Today, we're going to talk about asteroids in each of our charts. So
Mm.
today, we're each other's favorite astrologers. So let's see. I guess we could just dive into. I did a chart with a whole bunch of asteroids that I these are the ones that have been kind of in my purview lately that I've been, taking in and out of charts and kind of looking at. And let's see where to start.
So exactly where to start and just before we dive right in, and I want to just tell the audience the reason why we decided to do this. So when we've started doing these up close and personal conversations with the astrologers, so we decided to add in the asteroids, and the conversations ended up being quite interesting when we dived into the asteroids. And it's like there's so many asteroids out there. And I said to Sue, we could do this for the rest of our lifetimes and we still wouldn't cover all the asteroids that we can play with and get to see. And what we've seen, and I'm sure astrologers out there know this, is that asteroids add more flavor to the birth chart. We get a little bit more information about what's going on, the story that's taken place, whether it's a natal chart or a transiting chart. And so we thought it'd be nice to come together and see and just show you how these asteroids look and how they play out in the chart, and just to see what we pick up from each other in our birth charts and what asteroids are transiting in our charts and affecting us at this time as well. So, yes, so you've brought up the new moon and the full moon, which incidentally was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did that just to kind of give a little example of how some of the asteroids move faster than others. Some of them are really slow. They're way out in the Kuiper belt, so they move really slowly. Like for instance, Chaos. Chaos has just moved into here, let me get my annotation tool here. Chaos is here in the beginning of Cancer, and it has spent the last, I don't know how many years in Gemini, and I think it's now fully into Cancer, but it is, say, it has moved about 90 degrees in 75 years. So
Oh, wow.
it doesn't move very, very quickly at all. But then other ones like, well, Lucifer is another one because it has been conjunct chaos. They've been crossing back and forth in between Gemini and Cancer, and I think, like I said, I think chaos is now fully into Cancer, but here Lucifer is in, at the very beginning of Cancer. And
Yeah.
in 2 weeks, it's moved almost a degree back into Gemini. So, and they do go retrograde, like the planets do. So they kind
Isn't
of
that
have been,
interesting?
yeah,
So
yeah,
just right now, chaos and Lucifer conjunct.
exactly. I mean, which is, I think it really speaks to what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, we're not going to really dive into that subject, but yes,
exactly.
yes, we
Yeah.
we can see what's happening on a global scale.
Yeah. I mean,
And
chaos, as a concept is, where everything came from. It's
okay,
the Maya, the, where, the
the illusion.
original, where original milieu where everything started. But,
Yeah.
in another concept, it's, chaos, it's upheaval and so yeah,
In the retrograde, we're kind of repeating something from the past and reliving to redo,
yeah,
even to do with Lucifer, the bearer of light. So the light is being shone on some chaos, and we, I guess, collectively, individually, at a point need to make different choices, right?
Let's hope
Let's
we have
fingers
the
crossed.
opportunity, as the saying
Yes,
goes.
yes.
Okay.
Um,
Let's,
yeah, that's interesting in terms of yes. So there is that the speed of the asteroids is also important to look into because if you look into phasal relationships between planets and asteroids, you've got to know which is the slower moving body
true.
to work out that phasal relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
Good
yeah,
point.
so yeah. But when we're looking at sort of the transiting chart to a natal chart, you will always use the natal chart as the base point, always to know the phasal relationship. We'll have a look at mine and Sue's a bit in a bit to see
Yeah.
what madness is going on in our lives at this time, what chaos is doing in our charts. But
Yes.
with the new Sue, which occurred on January the 29th, because I was looking at so when you work with asteroids, it's important to work with a tight orb, and I'm using Demetra George's research and material of what she stated when working with asteroids is yes, a
From her
brilliant book if no one's read
Asteroid
it
Goddesses book.
or
Yes.
people have read it. Yeah, so Asteroid Goddesses, and she states that it's important to use a very tight orb, so up to three degrees. And she actually even states, and it's a wonderful talk on her website and even on YouTube. It's a video called Asteroids, Windows into Fate and Destiny. And she
Ooh.
mentions certain criteria you can use when you're looking at asteroids in a birth chart. So, for example, linking an asteroid to the luminaries, so the sun and the moon. You can link the asteroids to the four major angles. So you're looking at the ascendant, you're looking at the midhaven, then the IC and the descendant. And then you can also look at the ascendant ruler. So, you look at whatever sign's ruling your ascendant, and if that ruler is conjunct or opposing an asteroid, that just will start you off to understand what's in play in the birth chart. Because, you can look at a birth chart and just get completely overwhelmed with, not just the planets, but the asteroids.
Right.
So just learn to work with what interests you. And this is one of the reasons Sue and I wanted to do this because there's certain asteroids that I'm interested in, there's certain asteroid that Sue's interested in. Like so a lot more about chaos. Like I had never heard of it until you told me about it.
Well, it's
Um,
conjunct my north node, so I dug in.
yeah, so if it links to any of your planets, your natal planets, it's intriguing to see what it represents and what it means and how it's playing out in your own life. And we will have a look at that. But for yourself, Sue, you've mentioned this before in other talks. Kitty, where does Kitty sit in your chart?
Where does Kitty fit in my chart? Kitty
Should we move to our
is
charts for now? We can come back to this.
okay. Okay, so
Let's do
uh,
that.
let's talk about where it is now,
Okay,
and
sure.
and we'll go from there. So
Where
Kitty
is it now?
is here in Leo at uh, just almost 9 degrees, and it's conjunct Karma in Leo. And then, okay, so then there's a named asteroid that I use to signify myself, and that's Susanna. And Susanna has been traveling with Kitty and Karma for the past, I don't know, a number of months, and with Mars.
Wow.
And at the point when Mars turned retrograde, they were all very close together, which I thought was really interesting. And at that point, I had started the process of getting a new kitty, adopting this guy who's
Hey.
sitting here on my lap, who looks very much like the one cat that I had, previous. But so all of this was going on with Kitty and Karma, and Susanna all coming together. As you can see, I mean, they don't move all that much. Well, no, they've moved a few degrees, couple degrees, 2, 3 degrees. Um, But in my birth chart, well, let's see. Shall we just move on to my chart?
Yeah, yeah. Because
Okay.
I'm intrigued as to where they're transiting in your chart.
Okay. So in my chart, Kitty is here, 17 degrees Scorpio, and
See,
that is,
the chart hasn't moved on the screen.
oh, it hasn't?
No.
You're not seeing,
I'm still on the new moon and full moon.
oh, you are. Well, that's interesting. Oh, okay. So let's see. Why would that be? Uh,
Joys of technology.
okay. So now my kitty is here at 17 degrees Scorpio, and it is within a couple of degrees of my Mars, which is in Scorpio as well, and also my palace. And in my fifth house, which, in one interpretation, it's children. And my cats are like my children,
Mm,
is how I
of
look at it. And so now, um, with and the other thing is my Susanna is in my first house in Leo, and this is about where it went retrograde, where Mars went retrograde, where Kitty and Karma, I think Kitty and Karma may have been a little bit past that, but all of this
Yeah.
happened, a couple of months ago.
Wow. It's amazing when you just look at, because that's something that interests you.
Yeah,
You were,
right. Yes. I mean,
this,
cats
do you know what I mean? Yeah.
they're a very important part of my life, and, have been, ever since I was a child. In fact, I believe my mother told me that the first word I said was kitty.
And oh, that's amazing. And Sue, that's a great point because cats are important in your life. And that asteroid in my birth chart really wouldn't mean much to me because I'm not a cat person. I don't have
Right.
cats, and it's not been a part of my life. So that's an asteroid I won't look at in my birth chart really.
Yeah.
It's not something that would interest me on my journey. So that's just an example of just picking out what's relevant for the individual, just to get a bit more information and a bit more story of what's happening in the birth chart.
Yeah. 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 To me, it just kind of fleshes out a story that's already being
Mm.
told, and, just
Yes.
giving a little more information.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. And then another one that well, two more that I find fascinating are Atlantis and Eros, because they are conjunct my Mercury, which rules my south node. And um, and I have an affinity with Atlantis. So it to me uh, very fitting that it's at the base of my chart. Like I really have a strong impression that I lived a life in a, a
Mm.
previous life in a place like Atlantis, or, maybe Atlantis, or, a utopia in a way that was ahead of the time, but
Yeah.
failed certain tests, shall we say. And
Yeah.
okay, so I also have done past life regression. And one of the past lives I had was about uh, I was holding an animal that was in my impression was that it was like the cats that we have now, but
Mhm.
it was kind of squarish and more compact and smaller. And what I was my memory from that time was I told them not to do it. And in hindsight now, I kind of wonder if that didn't have to do with genetic modification, that they were doing
Wow.
something, with animals that I didn't like. And I was telling the men, don't do this. And they weren't listening to me.
Yeah.
And
That
so,
whole saying that that the reason why Atlantis lost its I was going to say the civilization was destroyed because they misused their power, right? That's what
yes,
I've heard when I've
yes,
looked into the whole Atlantis myth.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, there's that uh movie that is animated, with Michael
Uh,
Fox is the narrator of it. I think it's just called Atlantis. And the whole premise of it was that they had these crystals that powered their civilization, and the the powers that be misused that those
Energy source.
crystals, and the
Yeah.
power, and it blew up.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
yes,
that's a fascinating memory. That's a fascinating past life.
yeah,
But it's quite conjunct Eros, your love for Atlantis. Maybe there was so much love
oh
for
yeah,
that civilization and in Sue, look at that South Node in Virgo. Maybe the guilt associated from the past that maybe you wanted to do something to help, Virgo being that helping archetype. And the third house is to do with communication, you know, maybe, this is just an image that I'm getting from that, what you've just explained is maybe an opportunity to voice your concerns to whoever, and you didn't get a chance to do that. So a sense of guilt, maybe you could have done more. You know how we can just come with those memory imprints
right, yes.
that we hold within the emotional body, and that's quite close to your fourth house cusp as well.
Well, and Mercury is stationary retrograde too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
very close to the IC, very close to the
Yes.
South Node, very close to Atlantis, and I am writing a book, and that is one of the stories. In fact, I wrote that story. I think it was the day of the new moon in Aquarius, which I thought was really fitting that I was, telling a story about energy and you know, things that are, a little out there maybe, but
What is out there,
yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Sue, on a separate note, nothing to do with asteroids, it's just the transiting nodes, you're having a nodal return.
Yes, ma'am, I am. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
Coming full circle, Sue.
Yes, at the same time that Neptune is going over the transiting North Node and my North Node, and plus the Venus, Mercury,
Yeah.
Saturn, Neptune, the whole
The whole shebang.
shebang, the whole shebang. Yes, yes.
Amazing. Oh, that's
Um,
that's so fun. But again, you've just emphasized an interest in Atlantis before you probably even knew that there was an asteroid Atlantis.
oh,
Kind
absolutely, yeah. I've been
of those key
fascinated
points.
about Atlantis. I mean, for years, I remember, like, just being intrigued at where it actually was, because there's
Mm,
so many theories about, where it was, and how it, if did it sink? Did it,
yeah.
what happened? Was it the Bermuda Triangle? Was it,
Triangle. Mm,
yeah, was it an island off of Greece? I mean, there's a lot of theories on it, and I've followed I've followed a lot of them, just checking out to see.
yeah. Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Um, I'm trying to see what else in your chart has. So your ascendant ruler is actually the moon. So your moon
right.
is in 7 degrees of Gemini.
Yeah,
That is actually opposing CKL. Which one's that? That is
that's Caraclo and
Petco.
Ceres. So that's
Okay.
that's Caraclo and this is Ceres, and they are exactly to the minute conjoined.
Oh, they are. Yes, of course.
Yeah. And the first aspect that the moon made after my birth was to Ceres and Caraclo, of course, by extension. Um,
Yes.
and Ceres is, to me, it's about nurturing what nurtures us.
Yes.
And, you know, being in Sag, it's, theory, I guess. Um,
Just philosophies, the bigger picture, really.
mm,
Having an
yeah,
interest in something, a bit more expansive, inform like knowledge,
yeah,
curiosity, and a kind of natural, an emotional connection with what's natural,
mm,
you know, in from that sense, I would say, especially in Sagittarius in the fifth house. So
yeah,
kind of like, your creative purpose linked to natural law. Let's use that word for Sagittarius.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't know much about the asteroid. Um,
Caraclo?
how you pronounce? Is it Clerco?
Caraclo is how I say it. Melanie Reinhart calls it Chiriclo, Chiriclu.
See, see, I
Um,
would have started with Cha as well, just because of my surname begins with CHA. So
yeah,
it's just yes. I was like, how do I pronounce that?
exactly. But I figured she was Chiron's wife,
Okay,
and so I took it, and I do Google pronounce and all that to just to see, and it came. I think what I
Clerco,
came up with was Caraclo, but
Clericlo. Yeah, I
it,
would say it the same as you. Yeah, Clerico.
just because Chiron,
Yeah.
only because that's the way that we say Chiron.
It's
But
funny. I say
exactly,
Chiron sometimes, but I'm
exactly,
starting to change it. I'm like, which one is it? Whatever. It's the same thing.
yeah, like Uranus, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so yes, so Caraclo was Chiron's wife. She
Mm,
there's not a whole lot about her, as far as mythology, but what she signifies in astrologically is holding space for a
okay.
process to occur. So she just kind of held space for Chiron to do his thing, I guess.
Okay.
And then next to her, and with okay, so here's Chiron right here in Sag, and Chiron is with Hygeia,
IGO.
and
And that's the
so
that's the medical one, isn't it? That's the
health, yeah,
medical.
health and healing, and yeah. So the Chiron is kind of one of the ways that I got into both um, past life regression and further into astrology, because I did a reading with an astrologer named Martin Lass, who had written a book about Chiron. And he said that according to the placement of my Chiron, they're in the sixth house, that I brought in perhaps considerable healing ability from previous lives. So, I mean, that piqued my interest, and I had to find more about, past life regression. I had to find out, and that led me to um, uh, Roger Woolger's deep memory process. And that led me to Patricia Walsh's book about healing karmic complexes. And, all of that. And then that led me on a journey to do sessions in past life regression, and then eventually doing training to become a practitioner of DMP. So that's
Wow.
yeah.
I'll need to get you to do me a session one day.
Yeah,
DMP.
when we meet at UAC, is that where we plan to meet in 2026 or something?
Yes, it's something like that. It might be sooner, so you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah,
But
yeah, if we do a in-person evolutionary astrology conference, then maybe that'll be it.
I'm sure I've got a connection to America in some ways myself.
Oh, yeah, that's
Um,
one I didn't put in. I think we did. I think we did.
for me,
Yeah, I think we did. I can look when we get to your chart. I think there's
no
only
worries.
one other chart, one other asteroid at this point that I want to talk about. Oh, okay. One little tidbit about Caraclo and Chiron is that they don't meet uh, up together very often. The last time they
Oh,
were together was in Sagittarius in, I believe it was 1949. And the person who in that I've noticed that really kind of almost person. Well, there's a few people, but I noticed that Elizabeth Warren, who was a presidential candidate, who has she's a 0 degree Cancer sun, but she was born about right around the time when they were together. There are other astrologers like I believe Rick Levine has them pretty close together because he was born, around that time. And there was somebody else, but I don't remember now. But I find that interesting, and they won't meet up again in our lifetime, probably. They because of their orbits.
okay. Okay.
But the other
Interesting.
asteroid that I wanted to point out was Cassandra
Okay. Hmm.
because she's conjunct my Jupiter.
That's interesting, Sue. Before you tell the audience what that means, that links back to your Atlantis story, I think. So
Oh,
people just keep that in mind. You
oh,
you you just tell the
right.
audience.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I mean, I was introduced to Cassandra by Jordan Smith,
Mm.
who was has said a lot about it, but it's basically about um, losing and finding your voice in the world, and about not being believed, or saying things, and people saying you're crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, yes, good point, because that was exactly what I was doing, was saying, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And it kind of has followed me, in this life, to some extent, because I have views and beliefs that may not be mainstream, shall we say, and that people don't understand, you know,
Yeah.
and will, oh, you're crazy, So yeah,
And even that asteroid, even your Jupiter is being conditioned by that Aquarius in the eighth house. Double signature of I would say Atlantis. I always think of like the last Aquarian age they talk about, right? In terms of
right.
linking to Atlantis.
Yeah. And
Um,
look, I have
yeah,
Uranus in my 12th house.
yes, in Cancer as well.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah. From the past.
Yes. Ooh, I'm looking forward to your book, Sue.
Thanks. Okay, let's see. And then as far as progressed, I'm not sure if there's anything that I want to. Oh,
Well, I've just noticed the ascendant point. The ascendant at 17 degrees Virgo, right?
right. Yeah.
Karma is at 20.
Yes.
So that's that was within that orb of 3 degrees.
It is, and it's getting closer. And that's one thing that in the future will, my because your ascendant moves by progression similarly to the sun. The sun moves, a degree every day, which equates to, when you use the day per year for progressions, your ascendant moves that same approximate same amount. Sometimes it's a little more,
Right.
sometimes it's a little less. But
Uh-huh.
so that says that in probably about 3 years, my ascendant will progress to about 20 degrees, and karma, which doesn't move that fast, will then meet, and then pass interesting. Then it'll pass into my progressed 12th house. So
Yes.
I'll be meeting karma, I guess. uh,
Your book, Sue.
yeah,
Information.
yeah, could be. Well, and then so I don't know, where do we go from there? The ruler of that, Mercury, is in Sagittarius with
Yes.
Estrella. And what I don't I
I'm
Estrella
not sure what
is, what is it about? Truth
that's
and
what
balance,
asteroids.
truth and balance. All
Okay.
what I basically know is that she, in a chart, it points to what the astrology is about.
Okay.
What the story is of the time, or something. Um, you may know more about her than I do.
Well, no, I'm just quickly having a look because I actually don't. But it's exactly what you just said about fairness and justice. And on the shadow side, it can be where there's the inability to let go of something.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
her glyph is supposedly the balance.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what it looked like the seesaw kind of thing. If I'm looking at the
Mhm.
bit at the side, but
Yeah,
um, okay, that's fascinating, and that's linking to your Mercury.
right.
I'm sensing your book, Sue, about this was what was fair and just.
Well, yeah, and I have been working on it I mean, the
Mm,
the concept appeared probably in the last few years. I mean,
yeah.
I've always wanted to have been a writer, but I didn't know how to go about it. And
Mm,
then during the pandemic, I think I've told you I helped Eric Meyers edit his uh, book about the Beatles,
Beatles.
uh, uh,
The spiritual dimension of the Beatles, right?
spiritual dimension of the Beatles. I always call it the spirituality of the Beatles, so I have to stop myself because that's what I called it, at first. So yeah, the spiritual dimension of the Beatles. And at that point, that helped me to see how it was done, I guess, and realize that, oh, maybe I can do this. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that may have been, that would have been probably about the time that Mercury and Estrella were together.
Yeah.
And then, well, let's see. At this point, Kitty is with Progress Chiron, so it's, healing.
Healing time at home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, again, cats are, they are. We've had this discussion before about how healing. I mean, this guy is still sitting on my lap, just just happy to listen to us.
To listen. That's cute. I want to
Um,
see what it is right now transiting in my chart.
and let's see, and then Cassandra uh, has
Jupiter again.
moved with Jupiter. My Jupiter is retrograde in my natal chart, and as was Cassandra.
Hmm.
And now they've both turned direct, but they're both now in Aquarius.
Aquarius.
Yeah, and I my progressed moon moved over it in, like what, 8 months ago, probably 10 months
Yeah.
ago.
Into
Uh,
Pisces.
yeah. So, and the only other one I'll show you uh, a progress chart, and then we can move on to yours because, but
It's okay.
uh, I think this will link. Um, Medusa,
Isis.
Isis,
Uh-huh.
and Osiris
Yeah.
are all around my Mercury. And by progression, okay, so here is they are here, here, and here natally. So
Yeah.
Isis and Osiris are in Virgo, and Medusa is in Leo. So now by progression, here they are. They all have gone over my IC, over my South Node, over my IC, and my Mercury. And actually, before they went over, after they went over my South Node, and before they got to my Mercury and my IC, they conjoined by progression at 29 degrees Virgo, and I believe it was 59 minutes. So I will show you that chart here. So this is what I how what I do in serious software to to go back and forth and look at what happened a year ago, what happened 20 years ago, what happened 10 days ago, etc. So I just did a screenshot of that, but it shows here Isis and Osiris at 20, yeah, it was 29 degrees and 59 minutes. So they had all gone, over, and here Medusa was, approaching the South Node. And
So that was in 2011.
2011, yeah,
What was going on at that time? Because you know that I'm researching Isis at the moment in
yeah,
terms of her message and in the linking to the divine feminine and also Osiris and Isis. They're linked because of their story and their myth,
right.
in the world. And for me, Isis, I'm still very much diving into exactly what she represents.
Mm,
But for me, it links back to the divine feminine. It links back to the power that a woman has. She's considered as, her. I've been reading so much about her that I said it's the goddess with 1,000 names, I think is one that I read,
mm.
because, she's to do with magic, ritual, alchemy, how she, collected the 14 body parts of Osiris and put it back
And
together and
remembered him.
remembered him, yes. And then, he became the god of the underworld. He ruled the underworld while she, ruled, and, gave birth to their son, who, to be the leader of Egypt at that time, to usurp his uncle, that whole myth, at the minute. So it's just about power and greed and I guess in a way also fairness, because the true god of the time, the king of the time was Osiris and Isis, and in kind of trying to put back what was right in terms of rulership. And so I'm just intrigued what was happening in your life when that transit, because 29 degrees is a closing degree,
Right,
it's a closing cycle, and in Virgo, it's that transitional archetype that's happening, and it went over your South Node and your Saturn.
right.
So there's some sort of closure, Sue?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that was the time. That was at the beginning of my realization that I did not belong in corporate America.
Okay.
And I mean, it became more and more evident. I had known it. I had known it for years, but at this
Yeah.
point, I was getting more and more messages about. I was working for a bank in IT, and IT. was a very male dominated profession. And they just didn't like it when, they wanted to pat me on my head and say, "Oh, aren't you cute? Go away," basically. And so I was getting all kinds of certifications, but they weren't doing me any good. I was
Mm.
working for a bank that was basically failing.
Yeah,
This was after the economic meltdown, which had been about 3 years earlier.
yeah,
And that was when my eyes started opening about, they ran their stock basically into the ground. I and everybody I was working with was accumulating, stock as part of our package of,
yeah,
benefits. And the stock ended up becoming worthless, basically. And so, the I guess the opposite is the Pisces disillusionment,
yeah.
and the Virgo reality and
Practicality,
recognition.
right?
I'm sorry, what?
So, like practicality, like having to be practical.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, right, yes. And so that was about the time that I started doing things like I got a certification in psychological astrology. I became a Reiki master. I started the DMP
Mm.
training. And this was all in preparation. I didn't know exactly what was coming. I knew that I could see the writing on the wall that this company, was not where I wanted to spend. I thought I was going to retire there. I thought I would, I would spend the rest of my working life there. But it was becoming more and more evident that that wasn't happening. And so I thought, I'm getting old. I want to do what I think will make a difference in the world. And so I started getting training and learning about things that spoke to my heart,
Mm.
that I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
so I guess in a way it was kind of a remembering of what I had done, like talking about, my past lives, as far as Chiron, bringing healing energy in and stuff like that. And I just wanted to further that. So that, yeah, that was probably as that was going on.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is amazing how the asteroids just give you that extra little bit of
Yeah. Yeah.
like oomph in a chart.
Yeah.
Um,
Fleshing out the details.
yes, yes.
All right. So let's move on to you. Okay.
Me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, me. So, like I mentioned, asteroids, of course, you always use Chiron is not considered an asteroid anymore. It's a planetoid. Planetoid?
Yeah.
Is that how you refer?
Minor
Yeah,
minor planet, or yeah, planetary.
yeah. So, in terms of the asteroids, of course, I've worked with Vesta, Ceres, all the kind of the main ones that even Demetra George mentions in her book. But it was only in the last, I would say, 18 months or so, Sue, when probably when I first connected with yourself as well, when the whole asteroids, it was when you sent me that screen image of my birth chart and every asteroid, I think, under the sun
40
on
asteroids,
this.
I think. Of
Yeah, and I've got it saved and I will look at it when I look at certain transits. And I remember thinking, wow. And that's when Isis popped out to me, which is at 15 degrees of Gemini. And in evolutionary astrology, we look at something called skip steps. And that's, a planet or an asteroid squaring the nodal axis. And I've always known that Neptune in Sagittarius in the third house for me squares my nodal axis. So I'm recovering something to do with Neptune, Sagittarius, third house in this lifetime. But when I saw that Isis and Gemini in the ninth house, I remember thinking, Isis, okay, let me have a little bit more. Let me look into this. So then it divulged, of course, into Egyptian mythology, Egyptian myths, and then into the whole realm of the high priestess of Isis. So I'm still doing my research as I speak, and huge fascination with Egypt. I'm actually traveling there soon to actually go to the Temple of Isis. Just a
Ooh.
massive, yeah, yeah, I'm excited. And incidentally, Sue, Jupiter will be transiting my natal Isis the day I'm actually at the temple site.
How awesome. So it'll be at
Yeah,
15
it'll be at
degrees.
17 degrees, I believe. So,
Oh, cool.
um, yeah,
So it'll be
and it
opposite
wasn't
your
bad,
Neptune then.
opposite, directly opposite one of my major skip steps. So I'm like, okay, let's see what this trip brings. But yeah, so that kind of opened me up to Isis and looking back into just the whole divine feminine, like one of the original divine feminine women in mythology. And then what happened next was, for some reason, I can't remember how this happened, I started reading a lot to do with Mary Magdalene. And because I found out she was a high priestess of Isis, as is her lineage. And then I looked at Magdalena in the birth chart, and she sits at 16 degrees of Cancer, which is actually conjunct my natal Mars in Cancer, 16 degrees.
Wow.
And
That's close.
that's very close. And when Mars goes direct in a couple of weeks, or next week, I think it is, well, a couple of weeks, can't get my dates right, I'll be in Egypt again, and it will be at 17 degrees of Cancer direct,
Right.
right on top
Wow.
of,
So it'll
yeah,
be right here.
it'll be, yes, it'll be a new phase. So something new emerging from me to do with the emotional body, to do with, the 10th house to do with kind of authority,
Yeah, who you are in the world.
yeah. And also the 10th house being about, rules and regulations and I feel like I'm diving down. You talk about past lives and remembering. I feel like for myself, it's been very much of a journey of connecting me back to the divine feminine within, but from a perspective of, I'm from an Indian background. I could easily go to the goddesses in India, all the various gods and goddesses. And yes, there's a huge respect and reverence, but the pull towards, I'm going to say, I'm going to use the word Christ consciousness, not from the religious distorted perspective, but more from the Christ consciousness within, has been quite strong over the last year. So I've just been paying a lot of attention to the transits in terms of the asteroids and what's linking with those asteroids, especially Magdalena and Isis. And what I haven't looked at this point in time is Osiris. Sue,
Mm.
where is he in my chart?
He's over here in Aries.
Oh, that, yeah. Okay, so that actually opposes my natal
Conjunct
Pluto,
Eris.
conjunct Eris. Okay.
Oh,
How
and
would you how would you define that for me?
mm, well, Eris is about pointing out and fighting for the underdog, for one thing.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
uh, and, let's see, are we within, looks like we're within 3 degrees of Ceres.
There's, yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, Cyrus is definitely. It's interesting because for myself, Sue, I'm still, it's kind of like the story is still kind of unfolding.
hmm,
Because even Cassandra, you spoke about Cassandra, 17 degrees of Libra is actually conjunct my natal Pluto in the first
right.
house, right? You know, literally at the same point. And you talk about the voice not being believed. I feel like collectively, I think a lot of us have that story of, you know, wanting to follow your intuition, let's just say, the inner feminine or the inner intuition coming through and being judged from a patriarchal world, you know, just kind of like, that's not important or it's not practical, let's say.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
It
that's
doesn't
coming
fit
up a
in
lot.
with the
Consents, the status quo.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
consensus, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you're going to ruffle too many feathers or something like that.
yeah.
And in an interesting way, sometimes, yeah, because sometimes you'd be like, oh, who am I to want to write about, the high priestess of Isis, talking about the divine feminine within? Who's going to listen to me? But I know that's a skip step in my own life with that Neptune and Sagittarius in the third house. And I'm doing my work on a daily basis, one step at a time approach with that Virgo energy in the 12th house.
Well,
So
and
those
interestingly, your Neptune, sorry for
no,
interrupting,
no,
but your
please.
your Neptune has one resolution node and Isis has the
Mm,
other. So it kind of
yes,
incorporates the past and the present and the future
future.
all together.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm having my nodal reverse
Right,
in terms of the Virgo Pisces
right,
nodal transits happening. And at the minute, though, it's my first and seventh house. It's going to eventually go into my sixth and 12th house.
right.
And it'll
Yes.
go over all that jam-packed 12th house Virgo energy. And I do feel there's I'm a point in my life where there's a major shift about to happen. And I feel it's more from an internal perspective because
Mm.
I'm a big believer in the inside creates the outside, as within, as without, and I've kind of been pulled over the last couple of years a little bit more inwards again and paying attention to what I'm attracting on the outside, in terms of even with the clients I've worked with over the past couple of years, what are they teaching me? Because it's always a two-way process. We're always learning, whoever we work with, we're always learning something. There's always a projection happening, and that's what's been very strong for me with those asteroids. But
Yeah, and
uh,
the so you asked me about Osiris, and
mm,
the one thing that I love the remembering, because it
mm,
has a double meaning of putting
yes,
putting his body back together, but also remembering stuff, and that kind of fits in with what you're saying about working with other people, your seventh house, and how it all you learn from everybody, from other
yes,
people.
yes. Even in this work that we do, so being able to do these recordings with other people, with other
Mhm.
teachers and people that are involved with astrology. Just for like me, I rarely do just videos on my own. I feel like I need someone to converse with to kind of do that kind of back and forth dialogue.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Pluto and Libra. You, you bounce things off of other people. You work well
yeah.
with other people. Okay, so what the other one that we didn't talk about with my chart, but we
Tell me.
talked a little bit about before we started recording is Didymos, which is the twin, and it came into my purview when the United States did that uh, test to see if they could alter the trajectory of an asteroid. The
Oh,
and so that there's Didymos is an asteroid, and then it has a moonlet is what it's called. I've forgotten the name of it right now, but they sent a rocket to basically knock it off its trajectory to see if they could modify the orbit, and they did end up it hit in I want to say October of 22 is when it actually the collision occurred, and it did knock it changed the orbit of the little moonlet of Didymos. Um,
Okay.
di Dichronos or I can't remember exactly what it was called, but anyway, it so I started looking into that asteroid because I wanted to know, what are we messing with here, And I found out that it had to do with twins. And because you're a twin,
I am a twin.
I looked at it in your chart, and look, it's right here with your Pluto and your Cassandra. So, is there anything about that your voice with your twin, or
Well, there's
but you guys are
the one thing
close. I know that you guys are always talking, and
yeah, we are close. We live together, but we're very different as well.
mm,
It's interesting because we're kind of we have the kind of similar energy, but then we don't. But that just reminds me of the fact that my mother wasn't expecting twins.
oh, hello.
Yeah, yeah. One of us. Well, the joke is that she was the unexpected one because I was born first. So the joke is she kicked me out first. But yeah, that, with Cassandra next to that, who believes, you know, people like, no, that can't be. You must have been expected. But no, there was only one heartbeat when they went to do the scan back,
Oh.
and when, like clearly one of us was hiding.
You were as
Um,
one.
yeah, but yeah, so that's what comes to mind when is you talk that to do with twins, yes. And clearly in this lifetime, it's interesting because that Pluto in Libra, we can be a mirror. Like it was
Mhm.
just, I think it was just today we were having a conversation, and it was a conversation of it was a bit of a disagreement that happened over the last couple of days, but today the conversation was, this is what I meant, but you heard it like this. So it was like we were able to have a conversation and explain, okay, this is what I meant, and then like, okay, but this is what I heard. You talk
Right.
about listening, right, to do with Venus in the seventh house,
Yeah.
that polarity point being in Aries in the seventh house, taking the assertive action and being able to discuss it without getting into an argument about it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
which is which is important for us because we do have Mars in Cancer, which can get emotional.
Crabby.
Siblings, hey, siblings.
Exactly. Yes. Let's see.
Um,
Is there anything
there's just
else that?
one more. Yes, just natural Lilith,
Oh,
13 degrees of Virgo.
right.
So right next to my sun and Venus. And
Right. Right in
I have
here.
to admit, one of the strongest pulls towards evolutionary astrology was the fact it looked into natural law.
Mm.
What is natural, the divine feminine, going back to the sharing, care, and inclusion, it just made sense. And
Yeah.
and it's the love of EA in the work that I'm able to do. That's that asteroid. When I first found out about it, I was like, yay! It's at 13 degrees Virgo. Of course it is.
Well, and it also pulls in Saturn,
Saturn, yeah,
actually, manifesting something, actually, doing it and
yes.
becoming an authority in it as well.
That's the goal. Yeah, yeah. It's a work in progress. But
Always.
yes, yes, it rules my moon. So I know I have to admit, you talk about 2011 earlier, Sue. That was also the year I was made redundant from a job I thought I would have for a very long time.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, the year EA came into my life. And it's you talk about timings in transits, it's just fascinating to go back in hindsight and see, yeah, you can see when certain trigger points happen, certain asteroids may be linked to certain points in the chart, sensitive points. And that's why it's great if if you can if you're able to even project into the future and just to forecast. That's why forecasting does work. You can see patterns coming up. Maybe you can't predict exactly what's going to happen,
Right.
but you can see the patterns that are going
Yeah, the
to repeat
tendency.
themselves.
Yeah,
Mm,
the potential.
yeah.
The
Yes.
potential.
Potential. Yeah.
So, let's see. I just know something popped into my eye just now on your
Oh,
progressed
I
chart.
know what it was. I think Atlantis in my chart opposes my natal moon.
Oh, okay. Well, oh, okay. Well, yeah, what I was looking at was progressed is conjunct your progressed. All right, move out of the way.
Mars.
So in your natal chart, it's progressed your, it is opposite your moon, which you had just mentioned was the ruler of the Saturn over here.
Yeah.
I mean, the Saturn is a ruler of your moon in Capricorn, and then
Yeah.
you've got Atlantis opposite your moon, and this is like on the cusp of the fourth and the fifth house. So
Mm.
what do you and then here it's conjunct your progressed Mars in the 10th house. So how do you see that?
Well, like yourself, I've always been fascinated with Atlantis as well. The mythology and what happened and etc. And always been fascinated about reading up about it. In terms of the progress on my Mars in the 10th house, maybe the past life regression you're going to do on me will bring up some memories.
Well, and look at this. It's also opposite Pallas
Allison.
and Eris by progression. So there's a Eros, not Eris, but Eros.
And Rose.
Yeah,
Yes.
and to
Well,
me,
maybe,
Leo is um, a loving, sign. And I mean, Eros to me is what what motivates you, what you really love, what you know. I mean, there's different interpretations of it, but and let's see. Oh, and yours is natally over here. Let's see where my oh, there we go. Is over here, and it is conjunct Pallas.
Alice.
So, and then by progression, it gets even closer. So I mean, Pallas is about standing up for what's right, and which seems to be a theme. I mean, uh,
Mm,
with your Eris, Eris and Osiris over here with your,
yeah.
so do you stand up for the underdog, stand up for what's right? Are you
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to think so, but I also feel that's something I've been doing in past lifetimes. So it's something that I've done before, and it's just like continuation.
mm,
Kind of it's that whole sharing, caring, inclusion. We're all equal,
yeah,
and it's in that this whole judgment of like, for example, different caste systems, economic different levels and stuff. I just think it just divides people.
yes,
Our oneness is our collective consciousness, the fact that we're human beings. That a collective oneness is our originality, and it's just gonna come back to remembering that. And I'm all for fairness. I don't
yeah,
like to see
thus Aquarius.
inequality. Yeah, I don't like to see inequality, though, yes, I know it exists, but if we can stand up for something we believe in and it's not hurting anybody, the intention is pure is a big thing. I think intention is everything.
Yes.
So that's what stands out for me when it comes to something like that.
Yes,
But yeah.
I hear you with intention. Intention is, to me, is the biggest um, driver of. of where we are. In fact, I remember doing an art project one time. I was trying to, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was trying to depict a circle or a spiral and what propelled and I was using these circles in a spiral, and I was thinking, now what is it about these that makes it a circle? It's
Mm.
intention. They want to be in a circle. So yeah, I'm a big believer in intention as a driver of what's right. Your intentions, I think, are the biggest motivating factor or the biggest show of who you are.
Yeah, 100%. And energy is real, so people feel it anyway.
Yes,
People
absolutely.
feel it. Yeah, as we know, these asteroids are all energy that's moving in our solar system. Um, and we're being affected by it, and we have a choice with how we run with it, basically,
Yes,
how we
yes.
navigate the energies.
Let's see. I'm seeing a couple of other things before we move on
That,
to one last chart. But
yeah.
um, here we have Medusa, which I don't think we've talked about, have we?
Well,
Um,
Medusa in my birth chart, I do know is actually conjunct my North Node in
okay,
Virgo.
okay,
That I do know because
right. Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Oh, yeah.
And Medusa uh, is was a Gorgon
Hmm.
who is associated with the fixed star Algol and has to do with I mean one of the sayings that goes with Algol is off with their heads. And she that that
Yeah.
is it's the head of the Medusa,
The image,
but she also was on Athena's breastplate. Her
breastplate,
head,
yeah.
yeah, was on her shield to protect her, to send uh, the bad spirits away, the evil, to repel.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. My first ever trip, well, one of my first trips abroad was to Greece.
Mm,
And I can see it over there. I still have a statue of Athena with the breastplate, and it's got Medusa's image on it. And it's interesting because when I found out Medusa was that close to my North Node, my
right.
hair is naturally curly.
Yeah.
Um, I straightened it the weekend, but it's naturally curly in that I used to always joke I have Medusa's hair.
Well, how fitting is that?
It is very fitting. And I also, that whole misunderstood how was misunderstood and, how she was demonized. That's the right word to use. She was demonized. And there's a pure intention behind her story too. So I feel like so my lifetime's very much about voicing my truth. And everyone's truth is unique, but the intention behind it is to achieve um what's the word? What's it? Equality. Just,
Mm,
to live life in the most harmonious way we can as a collective race.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
From your lips, honey. So yeah, and here's your progressed moon also, and your progressed part of fortune tied in with Lilith and
Naturally.
Medusa, within a few degrees of each other.
I'm expecting Egypt to be interesting.
Yes. I think that's a great expectation. And okay, and one last thing,
Yeah.
Cassandra is with your progressed Venus.
Venus.
I mean, what more to,
In
presage that,
Scorpio,
the truth of of the feminine.
but Sue, in Scorpio, the truth of the power of the feminine.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was I did one other chart, and that is something I noticed um,
Yeah.
in in your progressions was that you have that, we talked about, you have that big presence in your 12th house.
Yes.
And so I was looking at I don't know, I went 10 years ahead or something. I don't even remember how I came to this, but I realized that by progression, now, I had talked about previously the ascendant moves about a degree a year, as does the progressed sun. So the progressed sun tends to stay in the same position uh, as it was when you were born. It
Hmm.
can vary slightly. And I noticed that at this point, which is 10 years down the line, your progressed sun will poke into the first house over the ascendant. And you said that you had some thoughts on that.
I was just gonna, do you know what? It's interesting because my first thought just was maybe that's when my book will be released.
Ah,
Because, my skip step is to do with not writing, communicating,
sure. Yeah.
um, you know, um, but I don't know. I just went, okay, first house, Scorpio, physical power, just coming into my own power in terms of who I am and having more confidence, I guess, because the Virgo energy can be, oh, it's okay, I'll be behind the scenes, 12th house,
I'd
it's
much rather
okay.
be behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'll just stay back here. But I know that there's a big calling and I feel it, I do, to just step into my personal power and just to get that balance right in terms of what power I do have and where I don't have power, but using it in a way that's constructive. That Virgo, Scorpio as an ascendant can be, it's an intense energy. It is, it's physical intensity, right?
Mhm.
So whenever I see anybody with a Scorpio, you can tell when a Scorpio ascendant walks into a room. They don't even know they're a Scorpio ascendant. So I'm sort of like, okay, get ready to I don't know, just sort of
Embody
being,
Scorpio.
yeah, like get ready for the attention. I don't know. I'm sort of like, okay. When I saw this chart earlier, I was like 2035. I was like, I think she got that date wrong.
Why would this matter? Well, and
Why,
so
why
you'll
would it?
have about, uh 4 3/4 years
Yeah,
to get used to
to
the Scorpio, progress
yeah,
Scorpio
that's
ascendant
yes,
before it pokes out into the into the
first
first
house.
house.
All right,
But
I'll tell my twin sister as well to get prepared.
right, right, yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see because you guys, how many minutes are you apart?
So actually, it's funny you say that. It's 5 minutes, but right now the progressed sun has moved into my second house. Like, yes, the progress chart,
Hmm.
and hers is still at the end of the first house.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So we have like a month. It's like a month that it tends to be, where it tends to be that difference.
Yeah.
Um, but we've had very different lives. We're very similar, but very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Which is
yeah,
great. I mean, that's the twin thing.
it is the twin thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Fascinating. Thank
And
you for
and
that, Sue.
and you
I'm
still
looking
have,
forward to 10 years' time. And
yeah.
what's
And
Cassandra?
you still have Cassandra with Didymos. So speaking the speaking the truth of the twin.
I'll
Right.
dive into that energy a bit more now, trying to suss that out.
Okay. So
Thank
anything you want
you.
to say in wrapping this up?
on that note, I'm like, right, okay. It's like it's what we said at the beginning, Sue. You can pick a few asteroids, that's great, but just get prepared to keep diving in, diving in, diving in. It's just literally more information coming up, and always go with the asteroids that interest you because more information will come up.
Yeah.
And it becomes more fun, right? It
Mhm.
becomes interesting. This is why over the last 18 months I've just been diving more into Magdalena, Isis, Natural Lilith, and it's opened up more, I would say, for my consciousness. It's helped like evolve my own sense of being at this time in life, and
Yeah.
I just enjoy the asteroids a lot more now. Like I in the past I'd be like I was a bit scared of them, like oh it's too much.
It
I'll just
is.
do with the main
It's
planets.
overwhelming. It's definitely
Yeah,
overwhelming. Yeah, I remember doing that, with all of the, look, this guy is still here. Kitty,
it's
kitty,
my voice, Sue. I said that earlier.
kitty,
He's like,
kitty. Yeah, I was totally overwhelmed. I mean, I
yeah.
put as many in it as I could in the chart, and I believe that that number is 40. And then I went, oh, what have I done?
What if I set her pass on? I literally went, whoa, okay. But it's fascinating. No,
Yeah.
I love it. I loved it.
Well, thank you. This has been so much fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and
Likewise.
who knows, maybe we'll do it again.
Yes.
Okay. I am. See you next time.